Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. There's a lot you won't find in the new trailers for Spider-Man Far From Home. Steve Rogers, Thanos, Tony Stark, they're not really gonna come up. We don't even really know when the movie takes place. Is it set after Endgame? That seems most likely and kind of what Kevin Feige is indicating, but I wouldn't dismiss the idea that the movie ends with Peter's fateful bus ride at the beginning of Infinity War. But to be honest, I want to set all of that stuff aside for a bit. Speculating about the Avengers is all well and fine, but it's a fun, well-written Spider-Man solo adventure that I really want out of Far From Home. No matter what the big genocidal purple guy gets up to a few months before that. So in this video, I want to dig into the new trailers and talk about them as a Spider-Man movie, not another piece in the puzzle that moves the universe forward. Because if this trailer is any indication, John Watts and company are actually steering the wall crawler into a pretty interesting direction, but one that I'm also a little worried about, but I'll get into that later. In many ways, 2018 was the ultimate year of Spider-Man. He had a climactic death in the biggest movie of the year, he was the star of one of the most acclaimed video games, he had a really solid comic book relaunch, and a great animated movie that's kind of getting Oscar buzz as we speak. I mean, even his villains were having a good year, with Venom being a massive hit. We've really been flooded with Spider-Man content. That's good if you're a fan of the character, but it also means that Far From Home really needs to stand out if it wants to get people excited. So it looks like they're trying something a little different. It's discarding the usual setting of Spider-Man stories, New York, and heading to Europe, which, at least to hardcore fans, is a pretty big change. In the trailer, we see a lot of London and Venice. The first of which is fine, I guess. Don't get me wrong, I love London, but in terms of how it would function in a Spider-Man story, it isn't really that different from New York. But Venice, that I'm excited about. We get a small glimpse at a fight in the city, and I just can't wait to see more. Spider-Man fighting a water-based villain in Venice is just a super fun idea that could lend itself to a really memorable action set piece if done right. But okay, that villain, is it Hydro Man? Are these guys Molten Man and Sandman? There is already a ton of debate online, and I could totally be wrong, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess no, at least not in the way that we're used to seeing them. Which of course leads us to Mysterio. Now we only get a few looks at Mysterio in the trailer, and only one of them is in his full fishbowl glory, but he's probably the character I'm most looking forward to seeing. The MCU's Mysterio seems to have a lot in common with Syndrome from The Incredibles. At least that's my guess from how other characters talk about him. It seems that at least at the beginning he's going to be acting the part of a superhero, like Iron Man and Thor rolled into one, according to one of Peter's classmates. Now anyone who knows Mysterio knows that's probably not the role he's going to play for the whole movie, but I do think it's a pretty smart jumping off point. I've always loved Quentin Beck, goofy costume and all. As a special effects expert, he's over the top and over dramatic in a way that makes him really easy to make fun of, even if he can be a serious threat sometimes as well. And while Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio may be into special effects too, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that he's stumbled onto something a lot more powerful than just smoke and mirrors. Now, I could be totally wrong about this, but I think there's a good chance that Far From Home carries over one of my favorite themes from Homecoming. The idea that Spider-Man, as a more street-level hero, has to deal with the fallout and consequences of the Avengers' actions. The Vulture was an ordinary guy who only became a supervillain because of the pent-up anger and weaponry left behind by the Battle of New York. And my guess is that Quentin Beck also has found a shortcut to some very Doctor Strange-looking powers. Maybe he sees the fame and, honestly, the extreme wealth of the heroes around him and decides that if they could do it, why not him? Even if he's not really doing it for the right reasons. And like I said, I don't have any idea if that'll actually be the case, but I do think it would be a smart way to push forward one of Homecoming's most interesting ideas. One of my biggest problems with the Netflix shows is that other than paying lip service to the Avengers here and there, they really ignore the effects that that group would have on the world as a whole. For example, Daredevil keeps talking about Matt Murdock's Catholic faith, but it never really asks how religion and faith would change in a world where famous Norse gods are flying through the air and aliens keep turning up. Now, okay, don't get me wrong, I don't expect Far From Home to dig deep into theology or anything, but I would at least like it to use the MCU to its advantage, and to take seriously how the events of past movies would affect the average person on the street. Spider-Man's the perfect character for this because few heroes in the Marvel Universe are as connected to the everyday as Peter Parker. Speaking of Peter Parker, if I have one big question coming out of these trailers, it's what can we expect Peter's central story arc to be? Now, I don't mean who is he gonna beat up after teaming up with Nick Fury, I mean on a character level. After Homecoming went out of its way to talk around Uncle Ben, understanding that people had seen his death one too many times already, I would like it if they were able to work him into Peter's story here. Not as a living character, of course, but at least as a looming presence that Pete is trying to live up to. It looks like Ben Parker's initials can actually be seen on Peter's luggage in one shot in the trailer. That's a small touch that I really like, and I hope it signals that the MCU Spider-Man isn't shying away from Uncle Ben's death anymore. In the American trailer, we see Peter's discomfort with Happy Hogan flirting with Aunt May, and while, yeah, that's just kinda typical Marvel humor, I'm kind of hoping that it hints at a bigger story for Peter, who, even if he tries to be nice about it, maybe isn't totally comfortable with the idea of May moving on. And of course, if this really is set after Endgame, we don't really have any idea how that will affect Peter or even who's still alive. So at the end of the day, what did I think of these trailers? I think they promise a fun, globe-trotting Spider-Man movie, which is great and everything, but I also hope there's a depth to the film that isn't really seen here. That being said, I can't wait to see Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio because I've been dying for this guy to play a classic comic book villain since seeing him in Nightcrawler. I don't really see these big monsters as being the old school Hydro Man and Sandman. That's an aspect of the movie that I'm looking forward to figuring out. And of course, the great dialogue and performances from all the young actors in the cast is what really carried Homecoming, and it looks like that's only going to be expanded here. Zendaya's MJ role is getting beefed up, which is a smart move, but one nod to the comics that I was super happy to see randomly was Flash's love of Spider-Man. For whatever reason, the idea of Flash idolizing Spidey while thinking Peter totally sucks will never really get old for me. Then there's Nick Fury, which I'm fine with, I guess. Look, Sam Jackson's Nick Fury has never really been a favorite part of the MCU for me. He's fine, but he tends to act more as a plot device than having a lot of depth as a character. And it seems weird that he's apparently going to be such a big part of this movie, since it's looking like he's basically the second lead of Captain Marvel this year too. It's not a huge deal, but I would have rather seen Peter paired up with Cap, Black Widow, or honestly even Hawkeye. But I guess who knows if they'll even be around post-Endgame. After last year brought us so many great Spider-Man stories across so many mediums, the bar is set pretty high for Far From Home, but I have to say, I'm not too worried. Tom Holland's performance as Peter Parker is so likable, and the villain is so promising here that as long as the script is solid, I think we'll all have something really fun. The real question is if this film is okay with just sticking with fun above all else, or if it has something deeper on its mind too. I guess we'll finally find out this July. You know, since Far From Home is pushing its new setting so hard in this trailer, it kind of feels right to talk about a great UK-focused documentary series I've been watching lately, Knights, which over the course of 3 episodes really digs into the real-world history of these legendary figures, going over both the shining armor mythology and the maybe not-so-shining aspects of their history. And you can watch it right now on Curiosity Stream. Founded by the same guy as the Discovery Channel, Curiosity Stream is a pretty amazing resource if you're a big fan of documentaries. They have over 2,000 to choose from about everything from science, history, tech, and way more. The best part is that Curiosity Stream is available worldwide and starts at the very reasonable price of $2.99 a month. In fact, you can all get 30 days on the service for free just by going to curiositystream.com/CaptainMidnight, which you'll find in the description and pinned comment below.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.